Now, for more on the future of Venezuela, we're joined by Robert Bottome, editor of Veneconomy, live from Caracas. Thank you so much for joining us.
It's an honor to be with you. And as you say, the funeral was today, and Chavez, in a sense, has become a thing of the past, although his spirit and his personality and his presence will be with Venezuela for many years. One of the big questions in many people's mind is he another Juan Domingo Perón? If you go to Argentina today, you'll find that after 50 years, still the politics of the country, the social problems of the country, the economy are all affected by the inheritance of the great dictator that was Juan Domingo Perón. And that is one of the first questions. A second question, which is perhaps more important for the immediate future, has to do with the economy. The economy has been falling apart in the last several weeks. We've had a devaluation, inflation is out of control, and if you try to buy rice or sugar or coffee or whatever, the chances of you're not finding it in the stores is very high. So you have and this is going to get worse, because one of the problems we had in the past year is that to win the election, the government went all out spending. We had a deficit of 19% of GDP. You cannot keep spending that way, and the possibilities of borrowing abroad have more or less dried up, which means that the new president, quite probably Mr. Maduro, is going to be facing a very serious economic crisis. And the question is he and his team up to facing that crisis, dealing with it, and taking us out of there? Robert, a lot of people, and myself included, yes?
Robert, I want to stop you there and ask you this. If he is elected president in 30 days from now or so on, what will happen for the next 6 years that he's in office? How long will Venezuelans deal with conditions possibly deteriorating even more?
Well, this is the whole point. We're heading into a period of great stress and great unhappiness and great instability. Now, that doesn't mean that there's going to be a coup or anything, but you've got a political situation that's going to be very difficult, and if the president is doing badly, his allies are going to abandon him, and according to the Constitution, at the midpoint in the term, we can actually have a referendum and throw him out of office and start over.
Okay, let's look to the
meanwhile, the opposition...
Let me ask you about the next 30 days.
Excuse me?
Let me ask you about the next 30 days, which isn't a lot of time for the opposition to put someone forward. Who do you think is the opposition's best bet to go up against Nicolas Maduro?
All right. The fact of the emotional reaction to the president's death and today's funeral and so on means that it's almost impossible to beat Maduro. That said, there are several things in his favor, in the opposition's favor, that can be brought to bear. Number one, Maduro is not Chavez. Maduro is one of the dullest and most uninteresting politicians you will have ever seen in your life. You add to that, he has been acting president since December, and in those 3 months, all these things that I mentioned, the inflation, the shortages, the devaluation and so on, have happened on his watch. So therefore, the combination of that and the fact that he is sort of a bumbler could be turned by the opposition into a campaign to throw him out of office. That's not easy. It's I would call it a long shot, but it's possible. You can't say it's impossible.
Who of the Chavistas would come and try to take Maduro's position, would you say?
Well, the closest, the one who is most likely to compete with Maduro for the leadership of the PSUV, which is the government party, is Diosdado Cabello, who is the president of the National Assembly, the legislature, and he is a former military man and a very strong ally of Chavez in the past. And he and Maduro are seen as rivals for the candidacy and for the presidency. The president, Chavez, anointed Maduro on the 8th of December. He was leaving for his last operation in Cuba. He said, if anything happens to me, I want you to vote for Maduro. So I think the chances of the party changing horses and saying we're going to run Diosdado as our candidate is almost, I would say, non-existent. But if we're a year into the government, popularity rating is stumbling between 15 and 16%. The economy is in the doldrums. There might be a lot of pressure saying, Mira, Nicolas, you've had your chance, you've made a botch of it, why don't you retire? And the pressure would be tremendous. The other side, the other alternative is that Maduro, seeing these things happen, would abandon the radical policies that Chavez was following, reach out to the private sector and say, please help me. And the private sector, if he really gives them, if he really seeks cooperation and makes concessions, the private sector might help him out. And we end up 3 years from now with something resembling a social democracy, such as we've had in Venezuela for the last 50 years until Chavez came.
All right, Robert Bottome, thank you so much.
That's also a bit far-fetched.
We'll have to see what happens. Robert Bottome, thank you so much for joining us this evening from Caracas.